Rails across America. Done. The last spike. Two huge locomotives faced each other on the track, huffing like great shiny beasts in the sun. An odd mixture of men surrounded the engines, some perched on the round bellies of the big rail cars, and some hung from the tall smokestacks. Portly businessmen mingled with dusty, ragged workmen. In the crowd of 600 or so, the face of a Native American or two could be seen, and here and there the dark skin of a black freedman. Very few women and children were present. Hanging back from the main group, but still there, were the Chinese in their long blue tunics and conical hats. The crowd was rowdy, many infused with the whiskey that was readily available in the dirty canvas saloons that lined the track. Speeches had been made by various important men. A minister had offered prayer. In the background, two bands succeeded in making some thin musical notes heard over the crowd, but no one appreciated the song. Everyone's attention was riveted on the few feet of track that separated the two engines. Two spikes stuck up from the rails, whose ends laid between the locomotives. One spike was silver and the other gold, engraved, though none of the crowd could see the tiny lettering. Finally, Thomas Durant of the Union Pacific picked up a special-made silver hammer and tapped in one of the spikes. The crowd applauded. Then Central Pacific's Leland Stanford took the hammer, swung, and missed. The crowd of rail workers laughed. Stanford swung again, and finally, the spike was pounded down into the rail. The crowd roared. We all yelled like to bust. One of the workers reported. Champagne bottles were smashed against the smokestacks of the engines. Done. The telegraph operator tapped. One word alerted the nation and the world. The Transcontinental Railroad was finished. The greatest race in American history was over. The Union Pacific Railroad and the Central Pacific Railroad had each built hundreds of miles of railroad track. Both crews had overcome tremendous obstacles in an incredibly short time. The best guess had been 10 years to do the job, but the UP and the CP had done it in 7. Big question was, who won the race? Oddly enough, there wasn't a clear answer to the question. Each company, graders, men who laid the bed of the rails, had worked past the other. The CP was preparing roadbed almost to the border of Ohio and Wyoming. The UP graders had gone clear to Humboldt Wells, Nevada.
Oddly enough, there wasn't a clear answer to that question. Each company's graders, men who laid the bed for the rails, had worked past the other. The CP was preparing roadbed almost to the border of Utah and Wyoming. The upgraders had gone clear to Humboldt Wells, Nevada. The CP was the first to reach Promontory Point with its track, having hammered down a spectacular 10 miles in one day, but the UP had built many more miles of track, twice what the CP had built. UP had their tough rock and tunnel problems at the very end of the contest. The CP had dealt with its tunnels through the Rocky Sierra Nevada at the beginning of the great undertaking. Even with the completion of its line, the UP's troubles were not over. The final spike would be driven at Promontory Point with as much fanfare as could be arranged. Friday, May 8th, had been set to commemorate the occasion, but when the day finally came, the celebration of the achievement was nearly derailed. CP officials had arrived from California in a private car pulled by the shiny new engine called Jupiter. They were greeted by UP Construction Superintendent Jack Casement, who told them that a storm had washed out tracks at the Utah border. The train bringing the UP officials, he said, wouldn't be able to get through until repairs were made. The truth was actually much stranger than Casement let on. Incredibly, Thomas Durant's private car, carrying UP executives, had been hijacked. A group of men, apparently disgruntled railroad workers, had stopped the train pulling Durant's car. They had demanded that Durant wire New York for a large sum of money that was owed them for back wages, or else, they had threatened. Demands for money from angry workers or suppliers had become a daily occurrence for the UP. It had struggled for some time with a severe shortage of cash. Many crews had gone months without pay. Brigham Young had sent several letters, first requesting, and then insisting, that his Mormon crews be paid. The UP's bills by this time far outstripped its ability to pay. On the other hand, stockholders in the subsidiary Credit Mobilier had collected nearly $12 million in dividends that same year. This discrepancy caused an uproar in the newspapers and the nation in general. Legal proceedings were beginning against the company. But for the moment, Oaks Ames in New York was able to scrape together enough money to meet the kidnappers' demands. The ransom was paid, and Durant's car was released to continue to Promontory Point.
Union Pacific's financial scandal would grow to ugly proportions in the coming days, but for now, the impossible had been achieved. America was united, east to west, by a great railroad. The men who had made the miracle celebrated, and America rejoiced.